I want to take some time to introduce Marxism and Marxist thought. It's important because it is a response to capitalism. It's a response in Europe, but because Europe was encountering the same industrialization that was going on in North America during the Gilded Age. But it's a response that's to have incredible ramifications throughout history from the Gilded Age to present. So we want to spend some time understanding it. Karl Heinrich Marx was born in 1818, died in 1883. He was a German philosopher, political economist, and socialist revolutionary who addressed the matters of alienation and exploitation of the working class, the capitalist mode of production, and historical materialism, this idea of looking at history through material things, how people get what they need to live. He is famous for analyzing history in terms of class struggle. He summarized this in the initial line introducing the Communist Manifesto in 1848. He said, "The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles." His ideas were influential in his time, and it was greatly expanded by the successful Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, which converted Imperial Russia to the Soviet Union. Marx had an equally important but lesser-known collaborator in Friedrich Engels, born in 1820, died in 1895. He was also a German political philosopher and Marxist co-developer of communist theory. Marx and Engels met in September of 1844. In discovering that they shared like views of philosophy and socialism, they collaborated and wrote several works together. In 1847, they began writing the Communist Manifesto, which was published in 1848. It was based upon Engels' The Principles of Communism. And after they got together, they published it 6 weeks later. It was 12,000 words in February of 1848. 1848 was an extremely, even though my slide says 1948, 1848 was an extremely important year of revolutions in Europe. In March, Belgium expelled them. And they moved to Cologne in present-day Germany, where they published a politically radical newspaper. And again, by 1849, they had to leave Cologne for London. The Prussian authorities pressured the British government to expel Marx and Engels, but the Prime Minister of England refused. So what is Marxism? It is an economic and socio-political worldview, and it is also a method of socioeconomic inquiry based upon a materialist interpretation of historical development and an analysis of class relations within society and their application in the analysis and critique of the development of capitalism. So it's a theory and a method of ongoing inquiry. We're not going to focus on that latter thing. In the mid to late 19th century, the intellectual development of Marxism was pioneered by Marx and Engels. Marxist analyses and methodologies have influenced multiple political ideas and social movements throughout history. Marxism encompasses an economic theory, a sociological theory, a philosophical method, and a revolutionary view of social change. There is no one definitive Marxist theory. Marxist analysis has been applied to a variety of different subjects and has been modified during the course of its development, so there are multiple Marxist theories. Here we see an example of Maoist thought, which departs substantially from pure Marxism. There's something called Marxism feminism, so it's been applied very widely. Marxism is based on a materialist understanding of societal development, taking at its starting point the necessary economic activities required by human society to provide for its material needs. That's what it analyzes. The form of economic organization or mode of production is understood in Marxism to be the basis from which the majority of other social phenomena, social relations, political and legal systems, morality and ideology, they all arise from the mode of production, the form of economic organization, or at least they are greatly influenced by the mode of production. As the forces of production, most notably technology, improve, existing forms of social organization become inefficient and stifle further progress. So as technology particularly improves, the social form of organization needs to change as well. Now, these inefficiencies arising from advances in technology or some other change in the mode of production, these inefficiencies manifest themselves as social contradictions in the form of class struggle. According to Marxist analysis, class conflict within capitalism arises due to intensifying contradictions between the highly productive, mechanized, and socialized production performed by the proletariat. That's a word meaning essentially the working class, and the private ownership and private appropriation of the surplus product in the form of surplus value, profit, by a small minority of private owners called the bourgeoisie, the sort of upper middle class, the capitalists, the owners of the means of production. These two terms, bourgeoisie, proletariat, are essential to understanding Marxism. As the contradiction becomes apparent, this stratification of wealth and this seemingly what's going on here? We're doing all the work and they're getting all the money. As that contradiction becomes apparent to the proletariat, social unrest between the two antagonistic classes intensifies, culminating in a social revolution. The eventual long-term outcome of this revolution would be the establishment of socialism. Let's be very clear what we're talking about with these terms. When I said socialism just now, I meant a socialist society in which private property in the means of production would be superseded by cooperative ownership. A socialist economy would not base production on the creation of private profits, but would instead base production and economic activity on the criteria of satisfying human needs. That is, production would be carried out directly for use. This is what the former Soviet Union was. That's what I mean in this sense, in pure Marxist theory, by socialism. Now, Karl Marx hypothesized that eventually socialism would give way to a communist stage of history, a classless, stateless system based on common ownership and free access, superabundance and maximum freedom for individuals to develop their own capacities and talents. As a political movement, Marxism advocates the creation of such a society. So this term communism we use refers to this future utopian state where after the socialism stage has been put in motion, eventually the state itself will just wither away and everyone will cooperate. This is a very utopian version of the future. So communism, living as a great communal society, is really an ideal in Marxist thought. And although we use the word very liberally, no society has ever achieved this Marxist communal state. It's a fantasy. Marxism has developed into different branches and schools of thought. Despite sharing similar premises, different schools of Marxism might reach contradictory conclusions from each other. These theoretical differences have led to various socialist and communist parties and political movements to embrace different political strategies for attaining socialism. They advocate different programs and policies. For example, on the one hand, you have here on the left, the Soviet Union. We see Lenin and his successor, Joseph Stalin. That's one more extreme version of Marxism where the state owns all the means of production and all private property. On the other hand, you have France. Here on the right, the new president of France, François Hollande, who has brought the Socialist Party back to power in France. They're not trying to implement something like the former Soviet Union. Socialism to the French means, for example, free health care for everyone. But they still operate in a democratic society and largely on a capitalist basis. So Marxism and its children are greatly varied and can mean many different things.